Heading into the Paris 2024 Olympics, Team USA men's freestyle looks unbeatable. Of the 10 members of the men's freestyle team that went to the 2023 World Wrestling Championships in Belgrade, Serbia, USA won 3 gold medals, 1 silver medal, and 3 bronze medals. This dominant performance had the US men's freestyle team win the team total. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention Stefan Micic, who won gold at 57 kilos for Team Serbia, but seeing as to how he wrestled in America for almost his entire life, including wrestling for Michigan in college, he is very much a product of the American system. But there is another style of wrestling, and that is Greco-Roman. So how did the US men's Greco-Roman team do at the World Championships? As you can see, not well. Not well at all. Not only did none of our wrestlers place, the team got 22nd overall, an extremely sharp drop-off from the first our men's freestyle team got. And this isn't just a this-year problem, as if these results are particularly out of the ordinary. In the past 25 years, or since the 1998 World Championships, American men's freestyle has produced 86 world or Olympic medals, with 33 of them being gold medals. In the same time period, American men's Greco has produced only 22 world or Olympic medals, with only 4 of those being gold. Across a quarter of a century, American men's Greco-Roman is clearly far worse than the freestyle counterpart, amassing just under a quarter of the medals that the men's freestyle team has. But why? Why such a steep drop-off in results? Isn't it all just wrestling? Well, yes, but it's not quite the same. I know what I'm about to say might be old news to some viewers, but I know that there are many people that don't know the specifics of wrestling, so I'm going to try and explain this at a basic level so people can understand that haven't been involved in wrestling for a very long time. If you have, well, then I am sorry for appearing so patronizing, but I think you might be able to understand where I'm coming from. In international wrestling, the type of wrestling that is also known as Olympic wrestling, or confusingly called amateur wrestling, there are 2 distinct styles of wrestling, those being freestyle and Greco-Roman. While there are many subtle differences between these 2 styles, the biggest one is that in Greco-Roman you cannot touch, grab, or trip the opponent's leg in any way during the match. However, in freestyle, you can. Attacking legs in order to take the opponent down is the main way freestyle wrestlers score points, whereas Greco-Roman wrestlers take their opponents down using primarily upper body throws and attacks. To put it more simply, freestyle wrestlers attack the opponents like to score takedowns and try to expose their opponents back to the mat. Greco-Roman wrestlers use upper body throws and then try and expose their opponents back to the mat. With that exceedingly brief explanation of the 2 main styles of wrestling, now let's get into why America is incredibly good at one of these styles and so absolutely terrible at the other. The answer to this is folk style. Unlike freestyle and Greco-Roman, this style isn't wrestled internationally, but is only wrestled in America. This is the style wrestled before high school, during high school, and a modified version of it is wrestled in college. If you're American and have wrestled in high school, this is the style you wrestled. If you ever watched an NCAA tournament or a duel, this is the style they wrestled. But what is folk style? Why does it doom American Greco-Roman wrestling? To answer that question as efficiently as possible, folk style is a style that focuses on leg attacks to score takedowns in order to turn the opponent onto their backs and pin them. This might sound familiar. That is because folk style is extremely similar to freestyle. In fact, these are so similar that most American wrestlers don't even have to change up their game plan that much between these 2 styles. Here are 2 clips of Jordan Burroughs, 3-time NCAA D1 champion and 7-time world/Olympic champion. The clip on the right is a folk style match, and the one on the left is a freestyle match. You might have noticed how similar these are. He uses the exact same shot, his lightning fast blast double, putting his head on the outside of his opponent's body and lifting them up and finishing the takedown. It's generally pretty clear that freestyle and folk style are very similar, particularly on the feet. However, the same similarity and easy translation cannot be said between folk style and Greco-Roman, which is where we get into the American wrestling pipeline and why it dooms American Greco-Roman wrestling. But what is the pipeline? It is the American Elite Wrestling Pipeline. How it works is fairly simple. Wrestlers spend all their days before they get into high school wrestling folk style at a local club, perhaps a middle school team, but oftentimes middle schools don't really have wrestling teams. In any case, they'll be going to tournaments and just generally trying to keep working on wrestling. As they get older and go into high school, they focus more on the high school folk style wrestling, as that's what colleges look for. In the fall preseason, they train folk style. In the winter main season, they train folk style. In the spring postseason, they train folk style. Maybe they'll train the international styles in the summer, but if they do, they'll be training freestyle far more than Greco-Roman, as that is more like folk style, which is generally speaking what they care about. The vast majority of high schools, of course, don't wrestle past high school, but the best get picked up by colleges. Here the wrestlers are better, and they spend a few years wrestling for the college. Most don't wrestle past college, but those that are good enough to transition into freestyle, that they've likely wrestled and competed it before, and it's very similar to folk style, the style they've wrestled their entire lives. They keep wrestling in their college club to try to get on Team USA. Only the best do, of course, and the best of these win and become truly great. This is what results in Team USA's dominance in freestyle. This pipeline builds world-class freestyle wrestlers and does so extraordinarily well. But what it doesn't do is a way to build world-class Greco-Roman wrestlers. And that ends up being quite a bit of a problem. As Greco-Roman is so different from folk style that it is much harder to transition into it than it is from folk style to freestyle. Unlike folk style, Greco-Roman wrestling disallows leg attacks, meaning no shots, no foot sweeps, and a completely different stance. While most Greco-Roman takedowns are legal in folk style, the further out stance in folk style means that the person who might get thrown with a Greco-Roman throw has more time to react and evade, so these throws rarely see any real usage. Naturally, this results in American wrestlers being largely unfamiliar with throws and upper body attacks. They spent their entire lives training with leg attacks and how to counter those attacks and how to counter those counters. I cannot stress enough how integral leg attacks are to folk style and freestyle. With leg attacks allowed, adapting folk style to freestyle is relatively easy, as I already talked about, but adapting their folk style wrestling into Greco-Roman is much harder. Due to I lived in Germany for 3 years during high school, and during the off-season of my high school, I wrestled for a local German club called TSV. While there, I would sometimes be called in as a late replacement to wrestle Greco-Roman during duels, and when I did, I felt like a fish out of water. So much of what I had trained I couldn't do, and I was left with maybe 3 moves I was comfortable doing. Compare that with freestyle, where my folk style training could give me dozens of moves to choose from to take my opponent down. That is how different the two styles are. Everything is different, so the athletes that try and transfer their wrestling from wrestling primarily folk style to now wrestling Greco-Roman must spend time adapting and practically relearning how to wrestle. And so when given the choice, the best American wrestlers go into freestyle. For the best, it's the easiest choice in the world. Before and during college, wrestlers have spent most of their lives training folk style and honing their technique in folk style to a razor's edge. If they dominated in folk style, why would they spend enormous amounts of time relearning how to wrestle when they could just switch to a similar style and dominate there? That's why every American that has done well in freestyle also did quite well in college. But if the cream of the crop is wrestling freestyle, then who makes up Team USA Greco-Roman? Well, not the cream of the crop of folk style, which is to say, not the people that the American wrestling system builds. The Greco-Roman team, these wrestlers work hard to learn their new style, putting in countless hours of training, wrestling, and conditioning to work just as hard as their freestyle counterparts. But unlike their freestyle counterparts, they have so much more to learn, as not only do they have to work on a different ground game from folk style like freestyle, they also have to relearn how to wrestle on the feet, which is where most of a Greco-Roman match takes place. It's a testament to how steep the learning curve is, that even after putting all of that hard work, when they go to major international tournaments, they often get wrecked by the best wrestlers from other countries. But what are the countries that aren't the US doing? Well, to put it simply, not having folk style and instead focusing on the international styles of freestyle and Greco-Roman wrestling. From children up through adults, these countries, and the clubs within their countries, wrestle these styles all year. I can personally attest to this. While I lived in Germany and wrestled for TSV, one difference that struck out to me, like compared to the American club practices, was how they treated the international styles. Unlike America, with 3 months out of the year being focused on international styles, in Germany, as well as with most other countries, the international styles are practiced year-round. Our practices were split with one half of the room doing freestyle and the other half doing Greco-Roman. Even in Germany, a nation with less than a quarter of the population of the US and with a wrestling culture that is not nearly as strong as the one that exists in the US, Germany's freestyle team and their Greco-Roman team did better at the 21st and 19th place respectively than US Greco-Roman did at 2023 World Championships at 22nd. Again, wrestling is far more popular in the US, but Germany has a freestyle and Greco-Roman teams that do better because they have a year-round international style culture. If you combine a strong wrestling culture with year-round international style training, then you get teams like Iran and Turkey, Hungary, and Georgia. Teams that were within the top 10 teams for both men's freestyle and men's Greco-Roman. In fact, this is the norm. 6 out of the top 10 teams in men's freestyle are also in the top 10 of men's Greco-Roman at the 2023 World Championships. But because of the youth wrestling pipeline and its focus on folk-style wrestling, US Greco-Roman will never crack the top 10 teams no matter how dominant our freestyle team is or will continue to be. In conclusion to this fairly long and highly specific video essay on a topic that nobody really cares about, the focus in America on folk style produces an elite freestyle team due to folk style similarity to it, but dooms Greco-Roman due to its dissimilarity to folk style, so our best wrestlers don't try Greco-Roman, and the wrestlers that do try Greco-Roman are years behind the wrestlers from other countries who have been doing Greco-Roman their entire lives. All of these things combine to make American Greco-Roman fail internationally. Maybe things will get better and American Greco-Roman will shine like its freestyle counterpart. Personally though, due to the entire American wrestling system working against that, I highly doubt it.